Really important series of hours coming up in our history. Could it be, for the first time in South Africa's history as a nation state, in fact, possibly for this region, for a former president to be arrested on the orders of a constitutional court? Well, we'll wait to see what the police, Mr. Becky Cele, does, what the National Police Commissioner, Kerhle Sithole, does, also police officers on the ground, what they do. And then, of course, there's the reaction from the people who you've seen supporting the former president at Nkandla. Let's go back to Nkandla now. Our senior political reporter, Ziyanda Ngcobo, is there. Ziyanda, good afternoon to you. Is there any indication yet of how all of the next few hours are likely to play out?
Well, Stephen, we are edging closer to the close of business, where this will give us an indication of whether or not the Constitutional Court will respond to that letter sent by Police Minister Becky Cele seeking clarity on whether or not they should continue executing the order handed down by the Constitutional Court last week. So by 4 o'clock, 4:30, we should know. Mind you, Stephen, that this is just a letter. It's not an urgent application of sorts. So, and given the tricky position that Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, who's currently the acting Chief Justice, and that letter by Cele was addressed to him, there is a school of thought that he may not be particularly enthusiastic to respond to that letter, but also he's not obligated to respond to that letter ahead of that midnight deadline, Stephen. On the other hand, we've also gotten word that from the Zuma camp that they're expecting for him to be picked up at 7 o'clock this evening, that preparations are afoot. We also know at the same time that the police minister is in the province. There was some speculation that he might be here to have a conversation with the former president. Stephen, I'm turning around because I'm seeing some activity just outside the entrance of the former president. It's unclear at this stage who this vehicle belongs to, but you can see that people are trying to congregate around this particular vehicle, and you can imagine what is taking place behind the gates of former President Jacob Zuma's Nkandla homestead. And I can tell you that to a certain extent, those who usually organize protests had not necessarily anticipated that this would actually still go ahead. They still have some hope that the Constitutional Court may just actually come out and really halt that order. We heard those court proceedings yesterday in the Pietermaritzburg High Court. And Stephen, if you could just forgive us, because we're going to try and remove the camera to edge closer to what's happening outside the gates, so that we can show you who is possibly arriving here. So we apologize for the shaky visuals as we try and make our way down and see who exactly has arrived outside the former president's home, given the fact that we're expecting him to be fetched by authorities at 7 o'clock. And Stephen, you know, when it comes to a possible operational strategies to have the former president actually handed over, you'll know, Stephen, that he has a VIP protection service which falls under the ambit of the South African Police Service. So maybe we could see the former president escorted to the Durban Westville Correctional Facility, where we understand he is meant to be incarcerated. Stephen, we didn't quite get to that vehicle on time, but there's a lot of movement here outside the home of the former president. We've been seeing police vehicles also patrolling, vehicles coming from outside of KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape, Tshwane, public order policing, tactical reaction team vehicles at the top of the entrance to the KwaNgamalala village. We've also seen police officers stationed there. So all indications are that if the information coming from allies of former President Jacob Zuma, 7 o'clock tonight is when he will hand himself over.
Ziyanda, just watching you there, looking around on the shots behind you, how much support is there for the former president? We saw what happened there on Sunday. It looks like, from what we can see, a very different picture today.
Very different picture, Stephen, and I can tell you that it's because there seemed to have been a misunderstanding of what happened in court today. Those who support former President Jacob Zuma, who've been organizing demonstrations outside his home, had actually thought that the reserving of the judgment for Friday, where Judge Jerome Nguni will make a determination on whether or not the arrest will be halted, meant that this particular aspect of the Constitutional Court judgment would actually become null and void. But we know, Stephen, that if Police Minister Begitele, National Commissioner Kehla Sithole do not arrest the former president today, they too will be in contempt of court, Stephen. So we understand, however, that there are plans to shut down tomorrow in different parts of the province and possibly across the country. But at the same time, one could say that that particular camp has been weakened. Colney House has been suspended from the ANC. We understand that other leaders, and I'm told there's possibly ANC NEC member Tony Yengeni, as well as suspended Secretary General Ace Magashule, could also have the same fate befall them as Colney House. So there's so many moving parts, Stephen, and I think the nearest deadline to look forward to is that 4:30 deadline when the courts close. And if 4:30 comes to pass without a response from the Constitutional Court regarding Cele's letter, we all know what needs to happen.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, thank you very much indeed. I know you're going to be on station at Nkandla, of course, really historic times, a historic few hours at Nkandla and around the country this afternoon.